Hey, everybody. So, if you've been following me for any period of time, you know that I'm somebody that believes that government is something that can be used to help all of us, and that the reason that government often doesn't work and doesn't do the job that we want it to do or expect it to do is because it's being sabotaged or it's just not being funded to do the job that we're asking it to do. And if you've been following me for any period of time, you know that I always bring receipts. And I'm very pleased to bring you receipts that prove my point. This article here from MarketWatch says the IRS crackdown on rich taxpayers is already raking in millions in back taxes. Here's how much. Then you look at the subheadline. It says one case involved an alleged tax cheat who spent $502,000 on gambling, the IRS says. Now, this article is going to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act and its impact on the IRS. And if you'll remember, the Inflation Reduction Act had a clause in there that included $80 billion going to the IRS over the next 10 years to make sure that the IRS could hire the people it needs to actually do its damn job. Now, of course, when this bill was signed by President Biden, you had conservatives and the GOP out there saying that this bill was nothing but a climate change bill disguised as an inflation reduction bill, and that the money going to the IRS was going to do nothing but allow the IRS to further target working class people, and that it was actually going to hurt the working class because the IRS was now going to hire 87,000 armed agents that were going to do nothing but audit the middle class day and night. And on that last point, we even had tax lawyers that are right here on TikTok with a pretty substantial following saying the same damn thing, that this bill was going to hurt the middle class and the working class because the IRS was just going to continue to use that money to hire people to go after them. Meanwhile, the IRS is actually doing what they said they were going to do, which is cracking down on the rich tax cheats, trying to close that tax gap we have of almost $600 billion a year. So I wanted to highlight this article because it shows that when the government is given the money and given clear direction on what it's supposed to do, it can do it and can do it quite well. And you'll remember that as part of this, the IRS also hired more people to answer taxpayers' questions, and the amount of calls that they answered went up by 2.4 million in just a year. But now we're talking about the IRS going after wealthy tax cheats. So what happened? So in a month, the IRS has cracked down on 1,600 millionaires. And out of the first 100 that they audited, they got back $122 million in back taxes, which is on top of $38 million in back taxes that they got from 175 millionaires, bringing their total haul to $160 million in back taxes that were owed and these people just did not pay. Now, I'm sure there's people out there saying, well, maybe they just made a couple of honest mistakes. Honest mistakes worth $122 million or $1.2 million per taxpayer, or the $38 million in back taxes from the other 175 millionaires? Maybe, but that seems like a far stretch to me. Also, if you're a millionaire, you're probably not doing your own taxes. But even if you are, that's a hell of a mistake to be off by over $1 million. But the article goes on to talk about in some cases, the recouped money comes from restitution or guilty pleas in criminal cases. The IRS and Treasury Department said on Friday that includes a $15 million restitution order for a person who falsely claimed that the personal expenses involved building a fancy mansion replete with tennis, basketball, and bocce courts were deductible business expenses. Yeah, that's not an honest mistake. That's cheating. Another case involved a person who skimmed more than $670,000 from a business by filing a false tax return. The individual allegedly spent $502,000 on gambling. Yeah, you see, these aren't just simple mistakes. This is fraud. This is tax fraud. But the IRS isn't done going after the wealthy individuals. The IRS officials now have their sights set on corporate tax money, stating that they're going to initiate 60 audits on major corporations. These businesses have an average of $24 billion in assets and are averaging $526 million in yearly taxable income. The IRS is also going to start looking at foreign corporations that have U.S. subsidiaries to make sure that they're actually reporting all the income that they earn here in the U.S. And the IRS is also going after large pass-through entities like partnerships, including law firms and hedge funds. Now, you would think that the party of law and order, the GOP, the conservatives, they would be happy to hear that the IRS is actually enforcing the laws on the books, right? Well, not really, because they've already reduced the sum to $60 billion from $80 billion because they don't want the IRS actually going after these people. Even though the IRS said this is what they were going to do, and we all know that this is a problem, the GOP doesn't want that problem solved. To me, this just highlights that old adage that you get what you pay for. We have a government that can function very well when we give it direction and we actually fund it to do its job, give it the resources it needs. We've done that with the IRS, and the IRS is doing a number of things. It's cracking down on tax cheats and showing progress. On top of that, they are actually answering calls so that everyday people can get answers to their questions and get their taxes filed on time. And on top of that, they are working with 13 states now to try and put together a free filing service that would actually be free, not this TurboTax bullshit where, if you end up having anything other than just a W-2, you have to spend $60 to even file your damn taxes. We need to stop voting for the party that thinks that government doesn't work and then gets into government to make sure it doesn't work. Look, we as everyday workers, as everyday Americans, we need to have the government there to level the playing field between us and the multinationals and the super wealthy individuals that think that the rules either don't apply to them or they spend all their money trying to change the rules so that it favors them. And look, this is just an example of one agency that we gave a little bit of money to modernize and to actually pay people to go and do the job that we wanted to do. And look at the dividends it's paying. Imagine what we could do if we did this with the entire government.